Ladies and gentlemen, Chicago is under siege. Mass federal agents are roaming the city, grabbing people off the streets, arresting public officials, attacking protesters, and tear gassing police, cops. Now, granted, they're trying to paint this picture as if this is an unlawful exertion of force here, but we're going to break that down. And exactly why this has to be done is even happening, because this could all be avoided, folks. We know that to be a fact. Even now, seeing how the mainstream media, liberal news hosts are turning on their own, leaving Democrats scrambling, trying to figure out what to do or what to say next, calling out their hypocrisy and their lies. And Jane Fonda says the wildest and most crazy thing that I've heard so far today, but it's still early, folks. And I'm not entirely sure why she's even brought in on this conversation.
No president has ever sent troops into the Democratic cities across the country saying full force. No president, as far as I know, has tried to control the Federal Reserve, the central bank. He is amassing power in a way that will destroy our democracy. And so we're going to stand up. You know, we're creatives, we're storytellers. We can do it creatively. We can have a good time while we do it. But we want to push back, and we want to model what creative, nonviolent, non-cooperation looks like.
I love the difference between Jane Fonda's, emotion and Dana Bash. Just kind of sitting there listening to her. And, I don't really know what Dana Bash's opinion is on Jane Fonda right now, this award-winning actress and activist, but maybe that's all she's doing is playing a role, playing a part, acting as if she cares or knows what the hell she's even talking about. Because the simple fact of the matter is no president has done this doesn't mean no president should. And President Trump is, in fact, the best, most qualified to get this done. And I think democracy, from the perspective of folks like Jane Fonda, Democrats, far left Marxists, is code word for destroy America.
That doesn't mean just showing up for people who are under attack like Jimmy Kimmel. A lot of us signed that ACLU statement protesting what happened to Jimmy Kimmel. Mm-hmm. But we want...
Man, who gives a fuck about Jimmy Kimmel? I know I sure don't. And who chooses and decides who to bring on to these CNN panels as guests to voice their thoughts and opinions here? Jane Fonda? Why?
Also, we want to be proactive, and we want to show what that can look like. And we will not tolerate violence. We don't want any of that, but we want to move forward with love, with unity, with solidarity, and we want to encourage everybody else and all the other sectors of this country to do the same. We don't want to be a pillar of support to this regime that's forming.
All that. We don't want to end up being a country overrun by illegals and cartel, gang members, crime, and this woke mind transgender bullshit that she's talking about without saying the T word, okay? And I know, who am I? Who am I to have my own thoughts and opinions about this besides, a conscientious voter and U.S. citizen who gives a shit about this country and doesn't want to see it go the direction that folks like Jane Fonda would be in support of. And so I open up, the invitation is extended to you all. Perhaps we split the screen and you guys can sit here and we can have a chat and we can have a discussion. If you're interested, reach out, let me know. All right, y'all, let's hit pause for a second because this matters and it's really important. We talk a lot on this channel about taking control of your life, making smart choices, and not letting the system overwhelm you. But when it comes to navigating Medicare, it can feel like you're wading through a swamp of total confusion. Plans, coverage, costs, deadlines, you name it. And that's where Chapter steps in. They're not just another company. They're the real deal when it comes to free Medicare help. Chapter's team of experts has helped thousands of people across the country find the right Medicare plan, and they do it with one goal in mind, putting you first. No fees, no pressure, just honest guidance to make sure you're covered without breaking the bank. Big insurance companies have their own agendas, but Chapter's got your back, fighting to get you the plan that works for you. So if you're approaching Medicare age or helping a loved one figure it out, don't go it alone. Call Chapter today at 270-467-2426 and start getting the clarity you deserve. Because at the end of the day, protecting your health and your wallet, well, that's not just smart. It's living life on your terms. Governor Gavin Newsom says that after shutting down the federal government and voting to do nothing about an imminent health insurance premium spike, House Republicans have gone on a multi-week vacation. Donald Trump and the GOP just aren't for the American people. And I think that it is quite the opposite and contrary, for the simple fact that Donald Trump, President Trump, and the GOP are all about the American people. And that's what they're standing firm on and fighting for, while also pointing out in some of the most hilarious ways with some of these memes that Democrats of all people have historically on record stated not to shut the government down. And what did they do? Yeah, just that. The government is shut down, says Thomas Massey, but the House refuses to go back in session. Why are we in recess, he asks. Because the day we go back into session, I have 218 votes for the discharge petition to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. And he says that Speaker Johnson doesn't want that to be the news. And look, here we go again, back to the Epstein files. And what do you guys think about Thomas Massey? What do you think about him? You know, I think that this is unnecessary. This is misdirection. This is the distraction. And it's a big nothing burger. And I've seen this already in another video that I was on the fence about even sharing with you guys because it is so ridiculous. It's so asinine about Speaker Mike Johnson.
Have you guys been following this story? It's a story I didn't want to touch because you never know what type of people are out there just putting stories out there to lie to you, scam you, or whatever. But this guy made a video where he said, Mike Johnson, if you don't swear her in by Wednesday, I'm going to release your Grindr profile. And of course, we're all like, oh, please, let this be real. Let this be true. And not because we care if Mike Johnson is gay, but because we care about the hypocrisy. Because we've seen conservative after conservative masquerade around as a good Christian and family values. And we don't want to over-sexualize our kids, or they're trying to make our kids gay and all that, getting into a bunch of nefarious shit on the down low. So we want to expose them for who they are and the hypocrites that they are, because they know and we know it's all bullshit to run around calling people sinners or saying people are going to go to hell and all of this shit just because they live a different life than you do, when for the most part, a lot of you are living that life on the under anyway. So the guy puts out the video. The next day he makes another video and it says something about, I've turned this information over to some news sources, over to my lawyers. He's attained, representation now. And he has this, GoFundMe account that he wants people to maybe donate to help him with this representation and all of that. And there's been all types of conspiracies going on about the guy. He's an actor, he's lying, and all of this stuff, right? But I didn't know, so I didn't really want to touch the story at all. But now the story's become a bigger story, even if it isn't true, because now the guy has kind of become the story. And here's why. So yesterday was Wednesday. That was the deadline. And of course, a lot of people were out there like, come on, let's see it. Like we want this to be true, because... And it's crazy too, because we already know these people are hypocrites. We already know that, like, when TPUSA goes into any town, there's a whole lot of like Grindr accounts popping up, so much so that many times they've crashed the actual site. So we already know these people are hypocrites. We already know that they're lying. But I guess it's nice for people to realize, like, again and again, yeah, we caught him again. So people were excited about it. So he puts out this video yesterday where he basically says, on Wednesday, where he basically says, listen, guys, I've been getting death threats. People have been like they're all over me. I had to leave, and he's like somewhere else right now, and and he's been contacted by different types of people or whatever. So he gave the information, the video or the information on the Grindr profile, over to his representation and to news stations, and according to him, it's being vetted, but it will be released. But he doesn't have it to release anymore. He can't do that. He's been told by his attorneys not to do it, and he's saying things like he's not protected by, rights to not, be sued for slander or whatever. And again, he says, hey, I got this, GoFundMe for you guys to maybe donate to. Now, listen, I don't know. I have no idea. I just typically try to go off of my intuition. When I first watched the video, I thought, why not release it now? Like, this guy is a major freaking like hypocrite / who knows what, right? Why threaten him or whatever? If you have this information, you could release it anonymously. Like, there's so many ways to do this without, putting yourself out there to the fact now that you're getting threatened by people or whatever. But whatever. Again, I don't know what's going on. All I know is most recently, he put out this video kind of explaining where things are now.
Well, it's Wednesday, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And if you're going to listen to this video, please listen in its entirety, okay? I would refer to my video yesterday when I told you that I had provided this information to my legal team, and it was then provided to a trusted media outlet. I no longer have this information in my possession. It is in several sources' hands.
And literally just bullshit, made up stories and lies with no foundation, no proof. And then when you address it and hold people accountable on their feet to the fire, they all of a sudden they disappear. They go silent. They go radio silent. The cat's got their tongue. Kristi Noem here says, and this points out exactly why we are where we are. Sanctuary politicians like J.B. Pritzker have not only turned over their states to violent illegal aliens, they are also actively working against law enforcement in support of lawless anarchists. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, under President Trump is deploying a whole of government approach to restore law and order in American cities. And if you guys are for law and order in American cities, then hit that like button and let me know.
I'm shocked by Governor Pritzker and his willingness to let murderers and rapists run his state and have a free-for-all against the people that live in there without making it safe for families. And that's what has been the most shocking to me, is to see these local governors and mayors not stand up for law and order. That we will go into Chicago, we will go into Portland, and we'll make sure we have the backs of our law enforcement. And that's what the Department of War is providing for us. When we go out and do operations and the local law enforcement are told to stand down, that they can't be there for us, it's extremely dangerous for these ICE officers, for these CBP agents that are out there trying to help go after these dangerous criminals. So we will use President Trump's methods and his abilities to deploy a whole of government approach, which means the Department of War will come in and help provide that security so we can continue to do our work.
We need to take over before they do. That's pretty much it. That's what it boils down to. We need to take over before they do. And they know that. But we speak the truth and they tell lies. And, the worst part about it is we, Kristi Noem, DHS, Department of War, President Trump, everyone is doing their job and they're following the law. And I got to show you this one because this is literally Democrats breaking the law. This is why Democrat politicians and law officials are the ones who get arrested and detained because they are literally breaking the law. And this one here, Kristi Noem says, my team and I were just blocked from accessing the Village of Broadview Municipal Building in Illinois, and we were stopping for a quick bathroom break. This is a public building. The Village of Broadview receives at least $1 million in federal funding every year. And this is how J.B. Pritzker and his cronies treat our law enforcement. Absolutely shameful. They will allow illegals into their sanctuary cities and give them anything and everything they want. but U.S. citizens and none other than, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem gets turned away from a public building that receives federal funding.
Can we use your restroom? No, you cannot. We can?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Interesting. That's what Governor Pritzker says is cooperation in keeping people safe.
We're going to call out Pritzker here in just a moment, and he is not interested in keeping people safe.
So why wouldn't they let you in? What's been going on here? What's been going on here, Secretary?
We were coming to go out and do some operations to pick up some guys with criminal convictions on them, and the city police wouldn't even let us use a restroom.
And you were just blocked by a worker here from the city?
A worker at the municipal building here in Broadmoor would not allow us to go in and to use a restroom at the police station. So as much as these local leaders and governors talk about cooperating and having the backs of our law enforcement officers, this is what we have to put up with every single day. And all we're doing is getting criminals and terrorists and cartels and gang members off the streets to make families safer here. It's ridiculous.
I mean, is impeding law enforcement? I mean, this is a real problem around here.
This is a real problem. I'm so proud of our officers that deal with this every single day. They know that America's got their backs, but what they face here every day is real prosecution.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Wow, Municipal Broadview Building. What do you got? The Secretary of Homeland Security inside the building.
I wonder what would happen if President Trump walked up to that door. That'd be an interesting conflict. And the resolution wouldn't be as peaceful, I don't think. And somebody would have effed around and found out. And I think part of, the big issue here is the fact that Kristi Noem, DHS, the law enforcement are doing their jobs and executing on orders signed by the previous administration. Granted, it may have been an auto pen, but these are Biden orders. Some of these are previous Trump administration orders, even Obama orders. Who knows how far these go back, because our immigration system was completely broken, except for when President Trump was in his first term, which led to a life-saving chart in Butler, Pennsylvania. And now we're trying to continue on in fixing it because, yeah, sure, the border was wide open. The wall was never completed. The border czar was out to lunch, knocking back a box of wine. And okay, sure, Final removal orders were signed and executed. For instance, Ian Roberts, in Des Moines, Iowa. Don't get me started on that one. But ICE wasn't actually enforcing. And so now they're literally just doing their job. They're being held accountable. And the Democrats absolutely hate it. J.B. Pritzker says that this morning, the Trump administration's Department of War gave me an ultimatum. Call up your troops or we will. It is absolutely outrageous and un-American to demand a governor send military troops within our own borders and against our will. Well, if you didn't let your state get so bad, maybe this wouldn't be necessary, but here we are.
I believe he's afraid for his life somehow. When you can have 40 or 50 people killed over the last couple of months, hundreds of people wounded. There's no place like that in the world. Hundreds of people wounded, 50, 55 people shot and killed. And Pritzker gets up and says, what a wonderful place it is. They need help. Washington, D.C. is now a safe place. You're not going to get mugged or hit. You're not going to get raped. You're not going to get anything. Washington, D.C. went from a hellhole to a safe place. I love the way you nod. Is it true, though? A lot of the people right here were mugged, reporters. And you know what? You're safe now. Nothing, we got no crime. It took 12 days to solve the problem, 12 days. And we're going to do that in Chicago. We're going to do that in Portland. Now, Portland is different. That's a bunch of paid insurrectionists. But you have a lot of paid people in Chicago, too. I believe the politicians are under threat because there's no way somebody can say that things are wonderful in Chicago. Almost 55, I think it was 55 people over a short period of time have been murdered in Chicago, have been shot. 222 people over a short period of time have been hit, have been wounded, not died. But 55 people died over a short period of time. You're telling me there's no city in the world like that. We're going to straighten it out. And I think that Pritzker, he's not a stupid person. I think that Pritzker's afraid for his life.
Yeah, I think that there's no way you can say Chicago is fine. There's no way with a straight face you can say Chicago is fine. And as far as these paid insurrectionists, these folks that are on the take, yeah, I think that Coach, I think he's part of that group as well. But if you guys want me to do a full breakdown and review and reaction to that, let me know in the comment section. But we took a family road trip over the summer, a few summers back, and everybody in the comments and everybody we were talking to were saying, avoid St. Louis, avoid St. Louis, avoid St. Louis. St. Louis is the murder capital of the world. Well, before we got to St. Louis, we actually stopped in Chicago. We stayed downtown right across from the Trump Tower, and Chicago was actually ranked higher on the list of crime and murder at the time than St. Louis. It was insane. It was unreal. But for anyone to say that it's fine, nah, no freaking way. You need to have your head examined. JB Pritzker posts this on X. It gets 3.4 million views and says that this evening, President Trump is ordering 400 members of the Texas National Guard for deployments to Illinois, Oregon, and other locations within the United States. No officials from the federal government called me directly to discuss or coordinate. And so what? Who gives a shit? Nobody needs to talk to you because obviously you're not getting anything done, JB. And let me point out here that the president does not need a governor's permission to send National Guard troops to a state. And if the National Guard troops are going to be under federal control, the president's authority, the president can federalize the Guard without consent. And JB Pritzker and the governor of Oregon, I can't remember her name. Hey, this is happening. I like how JB Pritzker says Illinois, Oregon, and other locations, because I'd be willing to bet that the other locations include Louisiana, for which the governor of Louisiana is welcoming President Trump's federal aid and assistance and support.
Washington, D.C. is a totally safe city. You're not reporting any crime because there is none. They said crime is down 87%, and I said, no, it's not. It's down 100%. We have a great thing going. I could do that with Chicago. We could do that with New York. We could do it with Los Angeles. So we're making a determination now. Do we go to Chicago, or do we go to a place like New Orleans, where we have a great governor, Jeff Landry, who wants us to come in and straighten out a very nice section of this country that's become quite tough, quite bad. So we're going to be going to maybe Louisiana, and you have New Orleans, which has a crime problem. We'll straighten that out in about 2 weeks. It'll take us 2 weeks, easier than D.C. But we could straighten out Chicago. All they have to do is ask us to go into Chicago if we don't have the support of some of these politicians. But I'll tell you who is supporting us, the people of Chicago. And I sort of want them to let it be known they have incompetent people.
Let me say this. President Trump has amassed the best cabinet of public servants and folks who really want to fight crime, like General Bondi, Secretary Noem, FBI Director Kash Patel. These folks know how to keep Americans safe. And you know what? Tonight, we're sending the Department of War a request to send the National Guard, asking them to deploy the National Guard here in Louisiana into our cities like New Orleans and Baton Rouge and others, so we can continue to reduce the amount of violence on our streets. Why would you not want your citizens to be safe?
Yeah, such a good
through federal control of deployment of the National Guard to get things under control, to regain lawful order within the state and get things back on track. Keep the people safe, okay? But JB Pritzker's cut from a different cloth. JB Pritzker's cut from a different cloth, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree as far as leadership goes in the state of Illinois as we head down to Chicago.
Well, let's remember that mayor has a less than 6% approval rating in Chicago. So the people who live there, less than 6%, think he might be doing somewhat of a good job. Overwhelmingly, that man is a failure. He's a failure for his people and hasn't stood up for the victims of the crimes that have happened in his city. So,
it's funny because that man, he's a failure, and 6%, I would chalk that up to error. I would give you a margin of error of 6%. So guaranteed nobody thinks he's doing a good job. And his people, you would think, would be citizens of Chicago. However, I think that his people would actually be, according to him, would just be black people. We want to talk about, we really don't want to talk about, but the left always wants to equate racism to what's happening. But Brandon Johnson has explicitly stated that he only wants to help black people and give handouts to black people and reparations to black people. And so, his people is questionable, in doubt at the very least. However, I would say in this instance, his people are actually criminals. They're criminals of all sort, size, shape, color, you name it, is who he's concerned with, if not overall himself, and the kickbacks and money laundering opportunities that he has from whatever underhanded shady dealings he's involved in. And, it's funny as we talk about this, the hidden comments that I uncover on the channel of exactly what the left is all about and creating this divide unnecessarily, as my wife and I were having a conversation about AI and AI misrepresenting so many different components and aspects of our lives in a very, very dangerous way that is coming up. And I don't know where these comments come from, but literally one of the comments says, a and her lover. Dude, what do you need to do? What you need to do is pretend you're a lefty and convince the retarded liberals that eating each other is an exceptionally good idea, that it tastes just like chicken. You can't make this shit up, but you can block and hide these users from the channel.
So we're going to keep doing our work every day when we're there doing our operations. When I'm there with them, people on the streets are clapping as we do our work. They're clapping as these officers are arresting these bad criminals. And out of the 12 that we arrested during the short period of time I was there, 6 of them had criminal records in their backgrounds that the state had arrested them and just turned them loose on the street again for assault, for weapons possession, for robbery. Those individuals now are off the streets thanks to President Trump, not thanks to that mayor who's delusional at best. Well,
delusional at best. Governor J.B. Pritzker sitting here with fake Tapper, and he says he's over here complaining about ICE doing their job. But again, here we go. Here we introduce the racial divide and this racist conversation of how J.B. Pritzker puts it. They're picking up people who are brown and black and then checking their credentials. I mean, I don't know if I actually buy it, but
let me just say that the secretary doesn't know what she's talking about. She frankly says that people are clapping. They're not. They're booing her on the street, and they're booing ICE and CBP. They're marching, the CBP marching on a beautiful Sunday in Michigan Avenue in downtown Chicago. They're raiding neighborhoods where instead of going after the bad guys, they're just picking up people who are brown and black and then checking their credentials. Are you a U.S. citizen? I don't know about you, but I don't carry around papers that say I'm a U.S. citizen. So you can imagine people are getting detained. They're getting arrested, U.S. citizens. And they did this, of course, when they raided a building in the middle of the night in South Shore. 130 people that were emptied out of this building. They were going after a few gang members, and instead they broke windows, they broke down doors, they ransacked the place, and there were people that were held, elderly people and children zip-tied. Elderly people held for 3 hours at a time. They are the ones that are making it a war zone. They need to get out of Chicago. If they're not going to focus on the worst of the worst, which is what the president said they were going to do, they need to get the heck out.
I don't know if I believe that children were hogtied and zip-tied. And you want to talk about ransack? You want to talk about Mar-a-Lago? You want to talk about that, JB Pritzker? And, it's like, I don't think it's an unreasonable ask. Are you a citizen or not? And some of these folks will probably say, no, I'm not a citizen. They'll probably tell you the truth. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And, this is quite the story, and perhaps maybe a very, very wild exaggeration with zero proof and zero evidence. And I'm not going to trust JB Pritzker's word or take it for face value. Not at all.
Intelligence indicates that these people are organized. They're getting more and more people on their team as far as attacking officers, and they're making plans to ambush them and to kill them.
And so if that is the case, and ICE is entering into a building to execute on a legal order, then I have no issues. I have no problems with them fighting back.
We have specific officers and agents that have bounties that have been put out on their heads. It's been $2,000 to kidnap them, $10,000 to kill them. They've released their pictures. They've sent them between their networks, and it's an extremely dangerous situation.
And this is how the left, this is how these deranged liberals, these Democrats, they operate. Violence is the only answer.
And unprecedented. So we've put protective detail around those individuals, changed some of our operations to keep our officers safe. But make no mistake, this isn't just about, protesting free speech or that they don't like that people out here are upholding the law of our country. They're actually going out there and saying, kill these people and we'll give you this much money to do it. Our intelligence indicates that.
How freaking disgusting is that? And, it's just like, as I listen to and I see and I watch Kristi Noem here in comparison to JB Pritzker, it's just like, you can tell the honesty and integrity of someone and their character, let alone the proof and evidence that we've already seen happen over just the last 30 days, folks. Think about that. Think about that. Where is JB Pritzker's proof and evidence to this? Speaking of proof and evidence to this, and exactly why this is happening is because the Democrats are trying to support and uphold this idea of giving free healthcare to illegals, okay?
I agree that this isn't about Pritzker versus Trump, but I have a question of who's going to protect the people of Chicago and the people of this country from the ICE agents that are terrorizing the city. I live in the city of Chicago right now. People are absolutely terrified. There are amassed unidentified ICE agents in unidentified cars driving throughout the city, grabbing people off the streets. They took a Black Hawk helicopter and they rappelled down an apartment building, ransacked the entire place, handcuffed everybody, including kids, and then looked at their immigration papers later. They're not going after people who are here violently, who are being violent. They're going after all kinds of people based on their skin color, and that isn't right. And look, there are real problems in this country on immigration. So we should secure our border. We should remove people who are violent. But this situation is out of control. And there are a ton of peaceful protesters at the Broadview facility right now. Now they're calling in the National Guard, which the people of Chicago do not want. This needs to end because the situation here is a powder keg and it's only going to get worse.
So basically, the people that are fearing are the people who shouldn't be here. And the Democrats, they love to use this specific particular type of language. It makes it seem like everybody, but it's really only the ones who've done something wrong, the ones who know that, if you weren't so bad, you wouldn't be so scared, basically. Then on top of that, this is going to be the narrative that gets repeated over and over again. Black Hawk helicopters rappelling down, zip tying children. Where's the proof? Where is the evidence of this?
Pritzker versus Trump, but I have a question of who's going to protect the people of Chicago and the people of this country from the ICE agents that are terrorizing the city. I live in the city of Chicago right now. People are absolutely terrified. There are
and ICE agents aren't terrifying, this terrorizing the city. And here's the thing: this is what Democrats, these woke, far left progressives, these liberals don't understand is their words carry weight. And here's what happens, folks. ICE then begins to report on the non-brown or black people that have been detained and deported lawfully through, executing on orders. Then they'll have no ground to stand on because it's not, they just pick and choose. They cherry pick the narrative that suits their needs the best. And now it's brown and black. But as soon as they're white or not brown and black or whatever that looks like, then what are they going to say? But those stories won't make the news. Those stories won't make the news. But if we had a complete compiled list of ICE, deportations of people who look like regular old, plain vanilla white Anglo, like those people as they exist, and Asian as well, and Indian. Look, well, I guess the Indian would fall into the brown category, but regardless, if the visual was there, the documentation was there to prove, them wrong again, then they wouldn't report on it, and then they would have to come up with a new lie, a new story, a new narrative to tell, which is exactly where we are right now with Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats and the media. The media actually calling them out on it. Of all people, Kristen Welker.
But let me ask you, because you say this is a Republican shutdown, but it's Democratic senators who are withholding their votes on what is called a clean resolution. That means no strings attached, which is something, quite frankly, Leader, that you and other Democrats have advocated for in the past. Take a look.
You do not use the threat of shutting down government to try to advance your policy agenda.
First thing that the House has to do is pass a clean 6-week CR.
A continuing resolution that is at the fiscal year 2023 levels is the only way forward.
But let me ask you, because you say this is a...
So what changed? What changed, Hakeem? Why the change of tune? And then you bring the tape out, and Hakeem, he's not going to answer the question. He's not going to actually answer the question that Kristen Welker asks of him, because it puts him on blast. It highlights the level of hypocrisy for which the Democrats only know is, lie, cheat, steal, we hate Trump, and pretend like we never said anything we said before, even though that there's video evidence and proof, there's history. The internet does exist. The internet is undefeated, folks.
The problem with Schumer's position is he's saying that, look, you've missed your deadline in terms of passing a budget, right. Which is actually true. I am not a fan of these continuing resolutions. I don't think it's a good way to govern, but a government shutdown is a lot worse. Right. But Schumer has said that in order to avoid a shutdown, for example, he's demanding that we repeal the biggest piece of legislation that we've passed all year. Obviously not going to happen. Part of this is the health care for illegal immigrants, which in California is not a matter of speculation. Gavin Newsom spent $23 billion literally driving Medi-Cal insolvent, providing free health care for those who are in our state illegally. And we used our tools at the federal level to pressure him to actually end that policy. So if Schumer is actually interested in negotiating, he should present reasonable items to negotiate. AOC said she wants to negotiate. Present some reasonable proposals, and we can negotiate.
I got about 15 seconds for you, but you have the Democrats saying, listen, the Republicans control the White House. They control both chambers of Congress. Why can't they just get this thing done? What do you say to that?
Well, spending bills have to be bipartisan because of the filibuster. And so let's make it bipartisan, but you can't have bipartisan agreement unless you actually are willing to negotiate in a reasonable way.
Yeah. Congressman, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
And if you look at it from just a pure numbers perspective, the amount of Republicans who voted for this CR, who are voting against providing free health care to illegals, for which doesn't actually and then also the healthcare conversation of ACA doesn't actually really come into play until the end of this year or next year, I think. So there's plenty of time. So what Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, AOC, the Democrats are doing is asinine. It's completely ridiculous. And it's only hurting the legal citizens of this country as they continuously push for their own agenda that really is more so about illegals because of obviously the want and desire and need for illegals for their votes and their census mapping for congressional seats and electoral votes. And so you have that. But if we just look at the numbers of amount of Republicans and Democrats, for instance, John Fetterman, who apparently, from what I've seen, leaves the Democrat Party, depending on how you want to look at this. John Fetterman has, done the unthinkable and leaves them to vote with Republicans, vote with America for that matter, really. However, there's still so many more Democrats who refuse to vote. And we only need like a couple more votes to get this passed. But they are being intimidated or threatened or held hostage or blackmailed or something, because the only conversation here is Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, AOC. But there's more out there. I think Rand Paul, though, ironically voted against Republican. So there's that. But regardless, this could have been solved without, the circus of clowns that we are seeing on mainstream news and lighting the internet on fire on these posts. And if the quiet ones actually stepped up, maybe they, obviously they would be afraid of some tragic and unfortunate, untimely accident happening to them or their families in the middle of the night. If they did that, but I think it would be a game changer. I think it would really start to wake people up, and really we need to expose the truth here. Okay. And Senator Mark Kelly says that in Alaska, folks have received letters that their premiums are going up from $600 a month to $4,000 a month. He says that that's unaffordable. And in my state of Arizona, 109,000 people are likely to lose their health care.
This is not a game. This is very serious. We've got folks that aren't able to go to work right now, but on November 1st, individuals are going to get these letters if they haven't received them already. Some have. There are folks in Alaska who have received letters that their premiums are going to go up from $600 a month to $4,000 a month. That's unaffordable. And in my state, in Arizona, 109,000 people are likely to lose their health care, meaning that they are one accident or one illness away from bankruptcy. This is not.
So I guess the question is, if this is in fact true, which I'm not sure if it is, should we as a country provide free healthcare to illegals so that, in essence, in negotiation here, folks in Alaska and in Arizona don't see a, huge uptick and increase in their premiums? Again, if that is true. And the reason why I say if that is true is because we've seen so many instances of misinformation and fake news, which brings us to Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, and the new changes coming to the Pentagon. Listen to this.
Our own civilians who can never be party to leaking. We're setting clear rules at the Pentagon. We're not playing games. We're not allowing everybody to roam around the building. That was the policy before, Peter. If you were a Pentagon reporter, you could just walk around the building. No badge, no escort, no nothing. Walk into offices, talk to anybody. Who knows where there's classified information. We're making the rules more like you might say the White House. Can you roam the White House wherever you want?
Typically not without getting a Secret Service guy up in my grill.
So we're just normalizing it. Yes, you can be in the press area, briefing room, but if you want to move around the building, you're going to have a badge. It's going to be clear. You're going to be escorted when you do so, and we have expectation that you're not soliciting classified or sensitive information. I think the American people see things like that as absolute common sense. The Pentagon press corps can squeal all they want. We're taking these things seriously. They can report. They just need to make sure they're following rules.
It's funny how he says American people see that as absolute common sense. And again, we are the party of common sense. I don't know what everybody else is or is doing. And this, Jane Fonda woke mind virus ridiculousness that, would hear Pete Hegseth say something like that and feel like, oh, it's not, we don't love everybody and we're not for it. Like, fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. We're tired of the bullshit. We're tired of the lies. We're tired of the fake news. Hell, even this man here in New York City tells Don Lemon the truth, as Don Lemon was called out on one instance and he was on the street and some guys, man, f*** you, dude.
How you doing, sir?
Good.
Can we talk to you? Where are you from? Do you live in New York?
Who are you?
Don Lemon.
You're a f***ing moron, dude.
Thank you. So are you.
Yeah, that's very nice of you to say.
Nice to say you.
Except you've never heard anything I've had to say, and I've heard a whole bunch of what you've
I'm glad you
say.
watched me.
No, I don't.
Why?
But you just get clipped everywhere.
I know, but why don't you? You said you don't watch me, but yet you know who I am, and I get clipped.
Before I realized that CNN and MSNBC were full of shit, every once in a while I'd see
What do you watch?
Talking. I watch all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, but why do you say CNN and MSNBC are full of shit?
Because they lie.
But about what? Be
Everything.
specific. What's everything?
Everything.
But the simple fact of the matter is he is fake news. He embodies fake news. Like he is literally like the quintessential fake news, but he gets like owned every time. Every time he goes out and he does these street interviews and then somehow he posts them because I guess he's just like, he humiliates himself by doing this, unless secretly he is on our side, which Don Lemon, I don't know, that dude is something wrong with that dude, because he talks all this crap again, racism.
Men who look like you, men who vote like you, and men who sound like you. White men, something is broken. Something is cracked deep inside when so many of you believe the answer to fear, to loss, to change is violence. Are you listening to me? I hope I'm saying it loud enough for the people in the back.
About the white man, as if he's reading from Ilhan Omar's playbook about the white man, but then he goes home and sucks the white man's and gets his cheeks clapped by a white man. I'm not even going to ask you to make that make sense. I'll just ask you to watch this last clip. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the next one.
How do you feel about the ICE raids?
The who?
ICE raids.
Like
immigration.
I feel good about them.
Yeah, you want them to crack down?
More, yes.
You do?
Yes, been wanting for years, all my life.
And what about them like roughing people up?
Nah, that shit crazy. Don't put your hands on nobody. That's crazy. Don't hurt nobody. Do it the legal way.
But that's what they're doing, though.
That shit ugly. Then no, I don't feel great about that. I mean, don't hurt nobody. At the same time, get them out of here. Get them all out of here. Please and thank you. Trump 4 more years for that.
Did you
just for that? Just
Did
for
you
that.
vote for him?
No, hell no. I can't vote. I lost my voting rights when I was 22 years old. I apologize.
You went away?
Yeah, for assault and battery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you said 4 more years for Trump?
Just because I want him to concentrate on nothing but immigration and getting them out of here. Just for that.
You don't think they
Nothing
contribute
else.
to the economy at all?
Of course they do. Of course they have. At the same time, think about the people who wasn't able to contribute because the immigrants was there. You know what I'm saying? The people who live here and who was born here, was raised here, who has the same skill set that they have, but wasn't able to do their job because they were there illegally to do it. Yeah. Now the people who's here legally, like me, I guess you, him, can't do their job because them people who are illegal are doing it, which is not cool for us.
But they're having trouble filling jobs. They can't find people to fill jobs.
Shit,
they're getting rid of so many people.
Okay, what kind of jobs are they?
All over in the service industry and farming.
Because it's like everybody got to reset. They're gonna reset themselves. That's all they gotta do. Reset themselves.
The farmers are complaining about it, that they want Trump to ease up a little bit because they thought they were just going to do the violent people. They need undocumented immigrants in order to get food to your table.
It's not true, bro. It's not true.
No, that is true.
That's not true, bro. That's not
you don't want to get facts.
There ain't no American born and raised here that won't do the job. They crazy as hell. I know lots of them in my projects. Trust and believe me.
Why aren't they doing it then?
Because they don't have the opportunity because it's not there. They ain't going down there just
no,
get
there
rejected.
are people who can't keep their restaurants open because they're getting rid of their undocumented workers, and they're trying to get workers here that are American born, and they're not taking the jobs. They don't want those jobs.
Oh, they don't want them jobs. Okay, I don't know nothing about that, man. All I know is that I'll get a job. I'll take the job. I'll do like 15, like the Jamaicans. I have 15 different jobs. I'll do one of theirs.